Alright, so this is going to be our first JavaFX program, and we're going to have to look at the setup here. So what I would do is I would suggest creating a new project, so a new Java project, but when you do it, you have to be careful about which JRE you pick. And the one you want to do is use the default, where it says JRE 1.8, and yours may be a different number, but do not use this executive or execution environment JRE 1.8. Otherwise, the JavaFX does not work. So make sure that option is clicked, and like I said, yours is probably a slightly different version than mine, but that works. So I'm just going to go give this a name. And start there. And for this first program, we're just going to use one class as we do this. So we're just going to go into our source folder, and I'm just going to create a new class. We'll call this Hello World. I'm going to click the public static main void, although JavaFX doesn't actually use the public static main void, but in order to get this to run the first time, we need it there. Otherwise, Eclipse doesn't really know what to do with it. So what we do with this public static main void is we just are going to extend it, and then we're going to just put one command in there. So first thing to do to get started, we're going to extend application. Extend application. Okay, and when we do that, we can hover, and we're going to get import JavaFX application. And notice that there's two of them. There's a com.sun.glass. We don't want that one. We're always going to be choosing the JavaFX version here. So I'm going to import that there. And when I do that, I want to get another error that says add unimplemented methods. And I need this public void start method. Okay, so now in this public static void main, I'm just going to type launch and in parentheses args. Okay, and that's all I'm going to do in my public static void main, and I'm going to actually leave this alone now. So we're going to leave that. Now in here, you notice there's a stage, and it gives it a default name, stage arg0. Let's change this default name to something that's a little bit better than arg0. We're going to call it primary stage, although for right now we're only going to have one stage. Okay, and we're going to look at how we do that stage creation and things like that in a second here. Okay, alright, so let's kind of work our way from the bottom up on this application. So the first thing we need to do is we basically need to have a stage. Okay, so we have a stage right here. It's called primary stage. And so once we're ready, we're going to say primary stage dot show. Okay, that's going to really be our last command here. Before we show our stage, though, we're going to give it a title. And so this is the title that we're going to see when the window pops up. And we can just kind of give it a string title here. So hello world, we'll call it. Okay, and then remember what goes on a stage. Well, that's our scene. So I'm going to say primary stage dot set scene. And I'd have to give it a scene. So I'm just going to call it scene here, and it's going to say that we don't have that variable yet, because again, we're working kind of our bottom up approach here. So let's create our scene. So a new scene, and we can check Java docs, but I'm not going to do that right now, to see that there are several constructors here for our scene. And we're going to use one where we pass it our root pane. And so we're just going to call that our pane, and we're going to give it a default size. So let's say 250 by 150, and that's going to be our scene. Okay, so again, we're going to have to do an import. So import from JavaFX, and it's going to tell us we don't have a pane yet, and that's okay. Okay, so our root pane in this case, we're going to look at a very simple vertical box, but we're going to kind of go back now and kind of start back at the top here. So our basic premise here is we're just going to write a really quick scene that comes up with hello world, and we're going to run that. So what we're going to use are two labels. So we're going to do label for, we'll call this LBL1 and LBL2. So we're going to create our two labels. and again our import. Now notice here there's several imports. We want to take the JavaFX scene control import. Okay. Now when I create a label, LBL1 equals new label, I can create it just like that, and then I can come in and say LBL1 dot set text, and we'll say hello. And I'm going to do the same thing for label 2, LBL2 dot or equals new label, but here I'm going to actually give it the word inside of it here. So again, two different ways that I can actually create that label and set the text to it. Alright, so now I said I need to have a root pane. Now, I have these objects, but again the objects aren't in a pane yet, and they're not on stage yet because I haven't put them anywhere. So the first thing I want to do is create a place to do this, and again I'm going to lay this out in a vertical fashion. So I'm going to use what we call a VBox to create this, and I'm going to call this my pane because that's going to be the root pane that I'm going to use. Equals new VBox, just like that, and then I'm going to import from JavaFX scene control, and now I have that. So now I have a VBox. The VBox goes on my scene, the scene goes on my stage, and I should be all set, except I have not actually put these labels anywhere, and so I have to put the labels now into the pane. I can do this by doing pane dot, I'm going to say get children, and then I'm going to say add. So I'm going to add a node, and my node that I'm going to add is label 1. I could do an add all and add label 2 at the same time, but I'm just going to add them individually here. So again, get children dot add, and I'm going to add LBL2. Okay, so now I've created two labels. I've added the labels to my root pane. So these are basically leaves underneath my root pane. I've now taken my root pane, put it into my scene. I've then taken my scene and put it on stage. And so if I run this, I should see hello world popping up for me. And that's it. Not much formatting, not much to this yet, but this is where we're going to start, and we'll kind of continue and build off of this.